medicine for anger is gentleness. And it's
I
not to
love that.
turn the anger into gentleness, but it's to wrap it in gentleness, because there's so much fragility like in anger, like we become brittle in a way, and the gentleness allows the fire to die down. It allows us to find our feet and our grounding again. It allows us to find our power, our center. And I think that when we feel empowered is when we can most easily access kindness, because then we're not needing to be defensive. We're not feeling like we're under attack, because we feel like we have access to our power.
Welcome to the Kindness Factor podcast, sharing life-changing personal stories of the transformational impact of deep kindness. Hosted by
Dr. Elia, the happiness doctor.
And Randy McNeely, the kindness giver. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Kindness Factor podcast. I'm Randy McNeely, your co-host, and I'm known as the kindness giver, or Captain Kindman. And I'm here with my wonderful other co-host, I would say my better co-host, Dr. Elia Gourgouris, the happiness doctor. And we are privileged today to be joined by a good man, wonderful man by the name of Mark Sliver, who has a huge heart. In fact, he has a business all created around heart-centered, helping heart-centered entrepreneurs to help them realize that every act of business can be an act of love. I mean, and that aligns right with what we're talking about as far as the kindness factor goes, because we talk about how kindness is an act of transformation, and experiences with kindness and with kindness heroes transform lives. And Mark has been kind enough to join us today. Just a little bit more about Mark. He's a designated master teacher within his Sufi lineage. I want to learn a little bit more about that. And he's received his Master's of Divinity. He's a coach, a teacher. He's facilitated thousands of individual sessions with many entrepreneurs and led hundreds of classes, etc. Mark, there's more we could say, but we want to let you just jump in and introduce yourself a little bit. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Well,
And
I'm just really...
welcome to the
sorry.
show. Welcome to the show, Mark.
I didn't mean to cut you off. Thank you so much. I'm really delighted with the focus that you have on kindness, because it's just so critical. I find I'm talking about that constantly with our clients, and with myself too, and our boys, and just more kindness is such a critical ingredient. And I'm grateful for what you're holding here.
Mark, who's your kindness hero growing up? There's usually somebody. Is this brother the toughest question we ask people, because they're like, well, I have more than one. It's not just one, but like somebody who really impacted you to such a profound way that it kind of changed the trajectory of your life, and kindness became part and parcel of who you are. Kindness is your second nature, and it like really impacted you, made you think about like, man, this is the way to live life.
Yeah, well, there's two very brief stories I want to tell,
please,
about this, and I won't say. I don't know. I will say that, like, one of the things that I believe about evolution and growth is that it's pretty rare to have like a single event be that impactful. For me, my experience has been like, a number of things that continually kind of redirect and reframe and I think that that's part of why kindness is so important, because it's like it touches us in all these ways, and it just keeps us on that path. But so there was a story when I was in my mid-20s, and my wife Holly and we've been together for 30 years, and she's had chronic illness, and she was really sick, and we were really struggling financially at the time. And we got to the end of the month, and somehow I'd missed or paid attention. Anyway, we were $1,000 short for rent, and I was terrified. I was like, what the heck are we going to do? And I'd never done this before. I was a grown person. I had a job, at the time I didn't have this business, but I was like, I was living on my own. But I called my parents, and I remember my father saying, Mark, we had help, and we're happy to help you. And what struck me about that moment that just has kind of reverberated wasn't the help itself, although the help itself was incredibly kind, but it was like there was no shame. It's like we all
Mm.
need help. We all need help. And it wasn't that they were coming in to like as the rescuers. They were like, we got help, we get, and now we can help you. And this is how it happens. And so there was this understanding that I mean, I had been raised with, but it was kind of put into reality in a different way for me and of what that means. And and there was a time where we were able to gift a friend of ours $1,000, when they were in a similar situation later. And it's just like that. It's just the way that I like to live life. And and I saw them do this, like they had a small shop that had been my grandfather's, and they were just so kind and supportive with the employees in ways that if they hadn't been, they might have been richer, but it would have been way less kind, in a way, and they wouldn't have had people that stuck around working for the store for so long. But it was just it
But they
really,
are
really
richer, though.
made
That's the funny thing is they're richer in a different way.
they are, and they're fine. They're still alive. They didn't miss out on anything. Well, I guess I was thinking like there's ways that they could have pocketed more money for themselves instead of being generous with their employees, and I think that but it was wonderful to watch and grow up with, and then to feel it in that moment. And the other story that I wanted to tell, there was before I was in this business, before this, the previous career, I was a paramedic in the
Mm.
San
Oh, wow.
Francisco Bay Area. And we went out on a motorcycle accident one day. And when we rolled up, there were these two guys. One was down on the ground, the other one was up, hadn't been hit. And the guy was up, had the you walk up and you see his back, and it's like Hell's Angels. That's what it is. And I'm like, okay, let's see what happens here. Um, you know, because for people who are listening who aren't aware of it, Hell's Angels, at least at the time, I don't know what the reality is now, but it's like they were a really vicious outlaw motorcycle gang. There were all kinds of things they were into, and I have to say that this guy was so worried about his friend. And the look in his face, in his eyes, like the kindness, like it
Mm.
struck me how, like the caring there. And he was like, how can I help? I just want to help my friend. Like there was no attitude, there was no defensiveness. It was,
You saw his humanity in his eyes.
I did. And it was like such a deep reminder because and of like seeing that so many times in people's faces where you wouldn't necessarily, you've been told that you shouldn't see it there, or some people have been told that they shouldn't see it in certain kinds of people's faces, but I saw it over and over and over again. And it just kind of echoed and reinforced this idea of humanity and kindness and care, and that everybody cares. Everybody cares. And if they're not showing their caring, it's probably because they're scared or they're defended or they feel threatened in some way. And it had a very profound impact on me.
You know, it's so interesting when you stop and think about that because we live in a society which is continually labeling people. They're continually saying, well, this group is like this, these people are like this, or this person's like this, or that person's like that. And like Elia said, in that moment, the Hell's Angel label, the everything went out the window. You saw him as a human being. You saw that somebody, that just was there caring about his friend. He was wanting to help. And that's one of the beautiful things about kindness. When there's natural disasters, we see this all the time.
Mhm.
It comes out that feeling comes out. People don't stand at their gate and ask, well, are you Republican, or are you Democrat, or are you this or that, and they don't sit there and say, well, he's black and he's white, only the white people can come in, or only the black people can come in. They don't care. All that goes out the window. They say somebody is kind enough to be here to help me, and people are, and it just, that's the way kindness works.
It does. I'm really glad, and I'm glad you're mentioning this. And this is another reason I'm glad that you're doing the work that you're doing because, the media likes to focus on looting and destruction that happens during natural disasters, but that's not really the truth. Like when with the studies that have been done, when you really get down to it and you look, people come together wonderfully and support each other, even and maybe especially when a lot of the institutions, are paralyzed. And it's terrible. I'm not saying that we want to be in that kind of a state, but it's like I'm hearing a lot of firsthand accounts of what's still going on in North Carolina
Mm.
after the flooding, and people are devastated. And it's like many people there are still in a state of emergency, in a state of subsistence, but there still is an incredible amount of kindness and coming together and support happening. And it is, I think that it is our it's at the heart of who we are. And
We've been doing this a long time, and I don't remember this. It's definitely a first where the words "Hell's Angels" and "kindness" are in the same sentence. And no, no, there's almost like poetic justice in some ways because you're right. We make certain assumptions based on what we've heard. Um, but I've also seen, biker gangs, collect toys for tots, like where you think like, wait a minute, these are hardened, whether they're criminals or they're just have lived a hard life and they're kind of outside of the mainstream, you know, part of society, and yet, you know, they collect toys and they deliver toys and they do something like that. So your brain is trying to like, well, wait a minute, we've been told certain things, but look at their actions sometimes, right? So I think I'm really glad you shared that story. Obviously, the story of your parents is beautiful, but I think that's more common in a lot of ways. But to hear something like that, that's completely like that's I've never heard that before. So
Mhm.
it's beautiful that you experienced that and that you saw in the end what does unite us. A lot more than divides us, actually. Unlike what the media says, there's a lot more in what unites us is we're all part of the same race, the human race. And our
Yes.
humanity comes out in the most dire of circumstances. Um,
It,
many, many years, like decades ago, I was certified through the American Red Cross for disaster relief for like first
Mhm.
responders and how to help that. So I've been to earthquakes, mudslides,
Mhm.
fires, all kinds of things. Even outside of the United States, even in Haiti during the devastating earthquake of
Oh yeah.
2012, I went there with another psychologist and helped. And that's all I saw. People helping one another. Um, and volunteer, not even being asked to help, which is even more beautiful to me. Not being asked
Mhm.
to help, but jumping in, rolling up your sleeves, seeing there's a
Mhm.
need,
Mhm.
and then doing something about it.
I mean, what's interesting when I look around society is how much effort needs to be put into to whip people up into fear and anger. Like there's like it's like in our natural state, we tend to like like you said, we help one another, we support one another. It's not that we're not, it's not that, people don't get angry or upset, and it's not that there isn't conflict. Of course there is. It's been throughout human history. But the level of outrage and upset and anger, um, it takes a lot of very conscious effort and resources to whip people up into that kind of reaction. And when you look at the kind of propaganda that's put into certain communities in order to make them angry towards other communities, I mean, it's a classic divide and conquer thing that
Yes.
happens, when people are playing the political game. But it's so interesting because that's like the amount of effort that it takes to maintain that. It's exhausting, and it's exhausting to be angry. I grew up um, as an activist and in the DC punk scene in Washington, DC, and I was involved in a lot of political activism, and I got so exhausted being angry all the time. Being um, in that kind of reactionary place. And I think that there's a place for righteous anger because there's a lot of injustice in our world that's being perpetrated by, that's a whole conversation. But anger is exhausting. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. I think that, what I've learned through my spiritual teachings and my spiritual path is that anger is a great way to kind of like if you imagine a car stuck in ice or stuck in mud, it's like anger can get you out of being stuck. It's like it can be a spark, it can be emotion, but it's not something to subsist on. It's not something to
Oh,
power yourself with.
right.
And it can be a wake-up call. And often anger is allowing us to see. I mean, this functions for me when I work with clients. It's like it's something I see over and over again. It's very often, not universally, but very often, it's a sign of like where we feel powerless, where we feel helpless, where we feel like something is being done to us or at us, and we can't reply in a useful way. We can't exert influence or be involved or have agency. And if that anger wakes us up to that, then there's a way to work with that. And
when a wallet was returned just moments after it was lost, a purpose was found. This one act of kindness inspired the formation of the nonprofit Kindness Worldwide to create a culture of kindness in communities throughout the world. Kindness Week Worldwide mobilized the entire community in York, Pennsylvania, featuring initiatives and playbook programs including blood drives, kindness cards, K-12 and college students embracing kindness, and an innovative means of community policing, kindness citations. If something so magical can happen in York, Pennsylvania, the same and other inspirations can happen anywhere and everywhere. Our Screen Scenes initiative featuring the Kindness Factor will showcase these many stories of kindness. Let's include your community among them. Kindness is the heartbeat of the world. Together, with your support, we can make all its hearts beat as one.
kindness, like it's very interesting because my spiritual teacher who passed in 2016, my sheikh, said that the medicine for anger is gentleness. And it's
I
not to
love that.
turn the anger into gentleness, but it's to wrap it in gentleness because there's so much fragility like in anger, like we become brittle in a way, and the gentleness allows the fire to die down. It allows us to find our feet and our grounding again. It allows us to find our power, our center. And I think that when we feel empowered is when we can most easily access kindness, because then we're not needing to be defensive. We're not feeling like we're under attack because we feel like we have access to our power. And
It's so funny that you should say that because
yeah,
you're using the word kindness with power. And sometimes, kindness has been seen, well, that's being weak. If you're kind, there's a sign of weakness, which is the exact opposite, because when you're vulnerable and you're gentle, like you talked about, especially for us men, I think I want to qualify that also.
yes,
Um,
yes,
it's powerful to be kind and to be gentle. It's actually part of the divine masculine in a lot of ways.
yes, it is.
So let's throw something out there. And you think about it. You talked about bringing down the heat and, being able to calm people down. And that's when you can step in. When people calm down, that's when they're more open to listening, more willing to think about things and to think about different ideas and see things a little bit differently. Like you said, anger is exhausting. I've been in a position of anger for various things, and it's totally exhausting. And the reality is, it's not hurting anybody except for ourselves, when it comes down to it. But the calmness opens us to feeling and seeing things differently. And that's the power, the beauty, the power of kindness. When people call kindness weakness, you have to stop and think. I'm going to throw this question out there. How important is to you to be able to build trust with people and have strong relationships? And most
Very.
people are going to respond, well, it's vital. I have to, if people don't trust me, then they're not going to want to work with me, and I'm not going to be able to build relationships because they won't want to have anything to do with me. Well, then, okay, so you would say that it's vital to have trust and vital, to build strong relationships. Then what you're saying is kindness is vital. kindness is vital because it's kindness. Kindness embraces every behavior by which we show value and appreciation for other people and
Mhm.
ourselves. And when we show that value and appreciation, that's when we do that, that's when we start building the trust. That's when we start building the relationships. You know, that the guy, you know, the Hell's Angel that was wanting to help his friend, you know, he had that value and appreciation for his friend because of something that his friend had done. They, you know, they showed cared for each other and stuff like that. And you recognize that, you saw that in him because he had
Hmm.
that caring spirit. He'd allowed those desires to, you know, to show value and appreciation come out. And that's powerful. Anybody, you know, that can call kindness weakness, they don't understand what kindness really does in our lives.
Well, I love what you're saying, and I want to highlight something that you said earlier because you said like kindness envelops any like all of our activities or expression. Something you said similar to
All of
that.
our behaviors by which we
All of
show.
our behaviors. I think where kindness gets a bad rap is when it's like kindness is gentleness. You know, it's like that same thing happens with love. Like kindness isn't gentleness. Kindness can include gentleness. You can be gentle and kind. Love can be gentle and kind, but love, you know, the way that I understand love spiritually is that love is actually an annihilating force. It changes everything. Like if you've ever been in love, you know that your world turns upside down. When people move with
No.
love, yeah, right? When people move with love, there's so much that becomes possible. It can change everything. It can give someone the steadfastness to be able to step into truth, to be able to speak truth to power. Kindness is kind of similar to that. Uh, it allows you, it allows you to be able to access parts of yourself that are shut down when you're angry, when you're um, unable to be in acceptance of the full breadth of who you are. And kindness allows you to have access. Kindness can be exuberant. It doesn't have to be gentle. Kindness can be energized.
It's
Um,
true.
ki- Kindness can look a lot of different ways. It can be kind, like with our boys. We have twin 16-year-olds now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We've kept them alive this long. Um, so you know, kindness is, you know, okay, hey, I baked cookies for you. But kindness is also, no, you can't have dessert before dinner because your body needs to be healthy. You know, kindness includes boundaries. Kindness includes
That's a big one. Kindness includes boundaries. That's actually, I don't think anybody's ever stated that way.
But
There's two things you said that kindness includes boundaries, which you're totally right. It's a kind thing to do to set boundaries, especially for our children. Um, but the other phrase that that's unique too is that love can be annihilating. That's not a phrase that I've ever heard before because annihilations, a lot of times things like, oh my gosh, it's like you annihilate something as a negative connotation as a word. But basically what you're saying is that love can annihilate everything, can melt everything, and can create, this new relationship, this new growth, this new deep and profound connection between two human beings, or more, more than two human beings. That's a
well,
very
yes.
interesting way usage of words for you, Mark. But I understand what you're saying, though. It's pretty cool to actually think of it in those terms.
Thank
and
you.
something to think about. What is kindness? You know, I talk about it embraces every behavior by which we show value and appreciation. But kindness is love in action. You
That's
know,
it.
love by itself is a feeling. It's a feeling that we have, that we get, that we feel inside our hearts and our bodies. How do we put that into action? It's through kind acts, the things we do, the way we act toward each other. That's what brings the love out. You know, the kind of love is like a vehicle. Or no, let me rephrase that. Kindness is like the
Kindness is to be able to
vehicle
deliver love. Yeah.
that delivers the love. It's like a syringe. Here's the kindness is the syringe, and the liquid inside is the love. And I'm going to give you a shot of that. You know, my
I
God, Mark,
I think, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say that's beautiful. And, you know, the Sufis would say that love is actually beyond emotions. Like it's a divine quality that we can receive and fill up with. and express, but we can't manufacture, like a lot of other divine qualities, wisdom, strength, compassion, these other core things. And love does need to be expressed, and kindness is one of the ways that love is expressed in the world. And I love how you I really enjoyed how you express that as if, what are the vehicles for love? How do we express love in this world? And um, a really expanded understanding, like a really true, I would say, understanding of kindness is very, um, yeah, it carries so much. It carries so much.
Well, my goodness, this has been a great conversation, and we are already at the point where we need
It
to
goes by
wrap
fast.
things up. But at the end of every conversation that we have with our guests, we put our guests on the spot. So here you are, Mark. We're going to put you on the spot. We ask you to share with us just three nuggets or three pearls of wisdom regarding kindness that we can use to, you can share to inspire our audience.
Or how you live your life, your philosophy, your like three, to a happy, good, kind, and existence.
Yeah. One of the things that one of the practices in Sufism, the core practice is called the remembrance, dhikr in Arabic. And the remembrance is remembering the source of love, remembering the source of kindness. And some say the divine or God or what have you. And that remembering, like being able to say, like, oh, I'm thirsty for love, I'm thirsty for kindness, I'm thirsty, please, can I be filled with that? Like taking the time to fill up with that and knowing that I don't have to generate it, I don't have to manufacture it through my actions has been such a relief. So it's like if I'm needing kindness or I'm needing love or I'm needing these things, those are legitimate needs and I can bring that in. Uh, a second nugget is like not only can I ask for it like through the heart and directly, I can ask for it from others. It's like, Holly and I have been together for 30 years, we're totally human with each other. It's like if we're being short or one of us is tired or we're not acting right, like instead of it generating into a fight, we can just say, I could use some kindness here. I'm feeling tender. And like that asking for it. And we do this with our clients too. It's like I was talking to a client yesterday who has a pretty business with some really big opportunities, but it's like was some really tender. It's like seems like you could really use some kindness here, some tenderness. Like let's ask for that. Let's bring that in. And there's just opens up this space. And so this asking. And I think this third thing that's related to the other two is understanding that our need for tenderness, our need for kindness, our need for love is legitimate. I think a lot of times people get locked down and go, oh, I'm never going to get these needs met, or I have to do these kinds of things to earn it. And just knowing that, oh, you know what, the same way that I just breathe, I don't have to earn my breath. I don't have to earn the blood that pumps around in my body and the oxygen that feeds me. Like I don't have to earn this. I can just ask for it, whether it's from people or beings or creatures around me or whether it's directly through my heart. And so learning to notice that thirst and then ask, that's been transformative for me in my life.
Thank you, Mark. What a delightful and beautiful and deep and spiritual conversation we've had today. It's beautiful. Thanks for being on the show, man.
Yeah, we so appreciate it. If people want to connect with you, Mark, what's the best way to do that?
Heartofbusiness.com. Come to the website. And I have a book called Heart-Centered Business, which is a great way to kind of just see if we resonate, if the approach resonates with you. And yeah, just welcome anybody who has questions or needs support.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Such a pleasure, my friend, to have you on the show. Thanks for being on the show. It was lovely, actually. Great conversation.
Thank you for the
Fantastic
space you both hold.
conversation.
Yeah.
And
Thank you for the space you both hold.
No,
keep talking over each other. Sorry. La la la.
Sorry, Mark. I just wanted to take just a minute and say thank you to our audience. Thank you for taking the time to listen today. You could have been anywhere doing other things. We really appreciate you taking the time to tune in and listen. And I would invite you, as we always do, to take just a few minutes and stop and think, what did I learn today? How is it applicable to me? And what am I going to do about it? And then take action. And we can promise you that it'll be a benefit to you in your life. And as we always say every week, remember that with kindness,
everybody wins.
wins. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.